students. So welcome to a very special lecture series on scientific writing. This is part number 13. I'm Dr. Pervaiz Ahmad. In these lectures, we will have a discussions on journal correspondence, and that we will have a discussion further on the submission process, revisions, acceptance, and rejections of the scientific article. So let's proceed towards today's lectures. So the first thing that normally you do whenever you have a correspondence with the journal, and that is considered mostly the first case of the correspondence, is first of all you need to write a letter to the editors. I mean, normally the people do it before the submissions, or even you can do it during the submission. That is, you write a covering letters. I mean, if don't want to do that, so you better write a cover letter. But it is most appropriate that first of all you should write to the editor about your articles. I mean, you should mention the title of your articles. I mean, the most appropriate title of your article, and then you should also tell something about your article or the importance of your articles. In the second paragraph, and in the last paragraph you should mention that what will be the benefit of this article to the journal itself. I mean, these are the three things. At first you should mention about your title, then tells the importance of your documents, and then the importance of your document of your paper to the journal itself. These three things you should send in correspondence with your letter to the editor first. I mean, this is the first correspondence you do with the editor of the journal. And be remember, you should follow the ethical policy, and the ethical policy varies from journal to journal and from publisher to publisher. All the publisher that have their each ethical policy, which is given on their website. You better to go there. You should have a clear look on that before you do the submissions. Are you trying to interact with any particular publisher? So you better to focus on the ethical policy first. So it's mentioned all the ethical policies for the journal that all the author must disclose all source of funding for their research and its publications. Along with that, it's also mentioned that author must disclose relevant competing interests, both financial and personal. Credit for authorship should be based on substantial contribution to research designs or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of the data, drafting the paper or revising it critically, approval of the submitted and final versions. Author should meet all the three criteria. So author must acknowledge individual who do not qualify as author but who contributed to the research. I mean, if there is author, there are the persons who have done the work, but you believe that he is not qualified enough to be included in the author, so you better to acknowledge him in the acknowledged sections. So author must acknowledge any assistance they have received. For example, provision of writing assistance, literature searching, data analysis, administrative support, supply of material. If how this assistance was funded should be described and included with the other funding informations. The copyright form, I mean, is given, and again, it's vary from journal to journal and from publisher to publisher, and mostly it's given on the journal's web page. So author must declare the submitted work is their own, and that the copyright has not been breached and seeking its publications. Along with that, it's mentioned on the copyright form that author should declare that a submitted work has not previously been published in full or is not being considered for publication elsewhere. Along with that, it's mentioned on the copyright that author of the manuscript describing experiment involving human participants must give assurance that appropriate consent was obtained. Uh, Further, it mentions on the copyright form that author of the manuscript describing experiment involving animals must give assurance that appropriate methods were used to minimize animal suffering. So, for further instructions, you should focus on the journal web page. I mean, the further details, you will find a list of all the details on the journal web page. So responding to the editors, normally you have uh, response from the editor once you do the submissions. So if you are lucky enough, so you get the acceptance without revision, which is occur very rare. I mean, this is very rare. It's not. I mean, it's the normal practice. I mean, if you're lucky enough, so you can get this response. I mean, at first, but this is not mostly happen. So if let's suppose you get acceptance without revision, so you need take no further actions until the proof reach you, except perhaps write a note thanking the editors. I mean, at this stage you do nothing. You should wait for the proof to come, and there they might ask you for some changes, or they may ask you to verify the changes that they have done during the preparing the proof of your articles. If you get minor revision or minor revision requested, and it's been mentioned that the paper is accepted, but you should do the minor revision. So consider the suggestion carefully, and if you agree that they will improve the paper, so modify or rewrite a sentence or sections as necessary. Retype any heavily corrected page before you return the paper to the editor, but enclose the original corrected paper as well as the typed copies and your covering letter sent with the revised version. Thank the editors and referees for their help and enclose a list of the submitted changes made in response to their suggestions. So if you have rejected one or more of the recommendation, explain why. That you do in the revision process. If you get the manual revision, I mean, you do whatever you consider to be the best. I mean, if you think that something you would like to do that will further improve your paper, so you should do that. If you do something, are you unable to do something, so that you should explain in the cover letter with very humble words to the editor, also to the reviewer, and you should also explain the reason that why you were not able to do that. And I hope that they will accept your apology, or I mean your shortcoming at that level. You can also get major revisions. So major revision can also be requested for further considerations. So when you have, I mean, here at this particular stage, you will have to think hard if the first effort is worthwhile. You may eventually decide that the paper is better as it is, and proceed to try another editor, I mean another journals, and the hope that he will agree with you. Rejection is always, I mean, a normal process. If the editor say that the article is too specialized or outside the scope of the journal, so your best course is to send it to another journals. I mean, first modifying the style to comply with the instructions of that journal. I mean, if your paper, let's suppose you submitted the paper, and within a days or 2 or 3, you receive the response of rejection from the editor, and every editor say that it's specialized or outside the scope of the journal, so you don't need to do any changes. I mean, you should submit it without any waste of time. You should submit it to another journal of your choice. The only change is, if you want to do, is that to make I mean into the format of that journal in which you are interested. So here at this stage you don't need to do any other changes. If the article is rejected because it is said to be too long and in need of changes, consider shortening and modifying it according to the criticism, and then submit it to a different journal. If the editor had wanted to see a shorter version, he would have offered to reconsider it after revision. Sometimes it's happened with the some of the journals. They suggest you to do those changes, and they're asking you to resubmit. So if you can do, if you are satisfied with that, you should do the changes and you should resubmit your manuscript. If you don't like, so you're free to do that, or to do the submission to another journal of your choice, which is more appropriate for you. So if the editor think the finding reported are unsound, or that the evidence is incomplete, so put the paper aside until you have obtained more and better informations. So unless you are sure that the editor and his advisor are wrong. I mean, if you feel like they did it wrong, he misunderstood your paper, or maybe the reviewer are wrong, or they have misunderstood your paper. So consider consisting the decisions only if you honestly think. So after considerable reflections and at least one night's sleep, that the editor and referees have made a superficial or wrong judgment. So in this case, write a polite letter explaining explaining it as briefly as possible, that why you think the editor should reconsider his decision. But I think, in my opinion, it's not a good practice. And normally, some of the editor, uh, though they reconsider, but in most of the cases, some the editor, they make it an ego problem. Even the reviewers, they don't make it an ego problems. They don't want the authority to be judged. So I think it's not a good practice. If your paper is rejected, so you better do the working on that, consider the comments seriously. If you think that it would improve your paper's quality, so that you good to work on that. If you think that the comment lies outside the scope of your work or the paper, or you don't need to include that, or you think that you don't need to do that kind of work, your paper is already suitable for its publication, so you better to do the correspondence with another journal instead of stick with that journal, because it will be a waste of time. And even if your your request is reconsidered by the editor, so the chances are minimum that it will proceed for fair review, or it will be accepted for publication. So you better, in my personal opinion, it's better to consider your paper for another journal instead of sticking with that journal again. So that's all we have for this. Thanks for watching. See you in next lecture on the scientific writing. That will be lecture number 14, and that's we will have a discussion on step and writing a paper. We will discuss different step in writing a paper. So stay tuned with us in lecture number 14. See you there very soon. Till then, bye bye.